Throughout this module, you'll see demonstrations given in Linux. You don't have to use Linux, but if you do want to use it, we recommend using the virtual machine provided. In that way, you get the same environment that you see on screen.
You don't have to. I'm going to show you Python Linux. It is the sort of preferred way to do it for this course. You don't have to just write Python on Linux. You can write Python on Mac. You can write Python on Windows. The reason it's the preferred platform, well, there's a few reasons. Firstly, Linux is a great development platform because you've got a lot of options and it's very
open, which is really good for development because you get to see how everything fits together.
So what we're going to do is we're going to use Linux, and the reason we're using Linux is twofold. Like I was saying, the first is because the Linux platform is nice for development because it's so open. You have a lot of access to various libraries, you have a lot of tools, and they're all free. Okay, free with a capital F, as in, you know, they don't come with restrictions, but also free with a little f, meaning you don't have to pay for them. So that's quite nice. But the other thing is that in cybersecurity, Linux is generally the preferred platform for actually operating. For sort of the same reasons, and a little bit extra because actually having access to the low-level system as you need to in various ways is really, really useful. It's also quite a secure system, so it's always been built as a multi-user system since the very early days, which means you don't have this problem that Windows always has had, in that there's assumption that whoever's sitting at the keyboard must be the owner and therefore can do whatever they like, and it's also a route for compromise that way. Someone just asked, and I'm going to turn the chat off because all I'm going to see is WAP logos popping past for the rest of the session. But someone did ask about using the Windows subsystem for Linux. You can absolutely use the Windows subsystem for Linux for a lot of what we're doing. There are going to be parts where you're literally trying to deal with Linux binaries or exploits on Linux and Windows, and so you might need to think about switching for parts of it. But yes, absolutely. Adam's been helping me with the material, so like he's developed half the stuff, I've developed half the stuff, and as far as I tell you, he's done his stuff on WSL, haven't you? And we're using the same repo, so it makes that little difference for almost everything that we've been doing that is hardly noticeable. The only times it got difficult, and it's not, you won't really come across this, is that Windows doesn't really have symlinks. So for some of the stuff, it's like kind of nice to be able to link one directory to another place, so you can import stuff without moving all your files, and that fails a little bit on Windows. Well, I say it fails a little; it fails hard on Windows trying to do that. They've never really got that kind of thing going. But I wouldn't be surprised if in the next few years we see symlinks coming into WSL, and then maybe even the rest of the operating system. Anyway, that's a completely different thing. So for these tasks, unless I tell you it absolutely has to be Linux, you can use whatever you like. However, the Linux VM that's provided for you is configured to be exactly the same as the one that's used to develop the stuff. Okay, so I've been developing in this VM for this. It's not my usual VM. It's quite a light one. It's based on LXLE, which is a Debian derivative. It's quite light. It's a 3 gig download for a fully configured system, so it's not particularly big either. I think the disk size is set to a maximum of something like 20, so you've got plenty of scope for doing stuff on the module. Or you can use different variants. If you install Kali in preparation for the course, you're welcome to use the stuff in there. It's not really a problem. So I'm going to show you in that environment. If you're going to use the VM, the next breakout is going to be using the VM or setting up your system however you want it set up. If you're not set up for it at all and you're not sure what to do, use the VM. Okay, think of it like that. If you follow along, you're learning, definitely use the VM. So if you are going to do that, start downloading now because it'll take a little while. You can download it from there's a couple of links on the page, and I'll put that in chat and direct message anyone that can't get to it, but it's linked in Aula as well. If you go into Aula, in the just under Module Essentials, there's a group of things. You've then got the virtual machine, and in there is one link. It takes you straight into the repository, and it says the virtual machine can be downloaded here, and there's a BitTorrent option. Okay, I would suggest if you've got a BitTorrent client or you don't mind installing MuTorrent or something like that, that would be a good option, because if everyone starts downloading in this session, The server will end up going slow because or the connection will be slow because everyone's going to be trying to use the same pipes. We all know the internet is a series of pipes. But if you use the BitTorrent version, the more of you that are downloading, the faster it will go. Okay, so that would be the preference. But if you don't want to, can't, or just there's some other reason it's locked, you can't get the torrent version, then download the other one. I've been trying to work out faster ways to do it, and BitTorrent seems to be the only real contender for having a static file somewhere. So I would suggest doing that now. I'm going to put a link in the chat. Anyone that can't get to this, you can get it from Aula, like I said. If you can't get into Aula as well, then let me know, and I will direct link you to that page because it's public. Looks like everyone's okay.
Just a heads up, I think some of these student Wi-Fi's block torrents.
Yes, this is so. Yeah, we won't get into how to get around that today. Maybe we'll. Actually, I think I probably can never get into that without getting into trouble. But definitely don't use a VPN because that would get around it. And of course, if it's university property and it's blocked, it's for a good reason. So and also don't be tempted by very good VPN suppliers like AirVPN that will do like a few days for like literally €1 and have servers all over the world that you can pick from. So in fact, shall I paste a link so you know where not to go?
Yeah, that sounds like a perfect thing.
I mean, this is the one I definitely wouldn't use.
James, I've got a question for the VirtualBox, right?
Yep.
I did try to install Linux, the ISO version on it.
The ISO.
Yeah, ISO version.
Yeah.
And I tried to get it on the VirtualBox, but I don't know how to load up the Linux machine onto the VirtualBox on there.
Okay. So this is the reason I've given a link directly to this thing is because it saves you all the install. Okay. If you at some point I'll perhaps do a video on how to build a VM with Linux in from scratch. But for now, if you've got VirtualBox installed, all you need to do is download from that link that I pasted in the chat. You'll get the file. You then go to File, Open. You open it up. It'll do a bit of converting, and you'll have a fully working VM.
Oh, so it's got everything on there then. If I install
everything on there, that's it. So Python's installed. It's not like there's a lot of configuration done because I actually want you to install some libraries and stuff, and we'll be using something called virtualenv for a lot of it anyway. So mostly it's just making sure that you get a sensible shell, that Python's definitely there, that you can run all the stuff, and later we will use Docker for some stuff. And I've set it up so that Docker will run into a standard user mode, and we don't have anything complicated. So it's just just there.
Okay. Thank you.
Sorry, James.
Yeah.
Is it okay if we use like the Oracle VBox?
Yes. So VirtualBox is exactly what I'd like you to download. If you go to the link that I've posted, you'll see there's actually a link to where you can download VirtualBox. I'm going to try and get a VMware. I mentioned this earlier. I'm going to try and get a VMware version up as well. But for some reason, the OVA that is exported from VirtualBox is not considered to be correct by VMware. I'm hoping that I can either fix that problem, or I'll maybe even switch to using VMware to build it and then export an OVA from there and hope that VirtualBox can read it. If all else fails, I will just maintain two separate versions for a little while, which I don't really want to do, but it's not the end of the world. But for now,
sorry, go on.
No, sorry.
I was just going to say, some people have asked if they can use their own VMs. You can. If it's a Linux VM, it'll work. But like James says, we've already pre-configured this VM to do a lot of the stuff that you're going to need. So, if you're happy using your own VM, sure, but you're going to have to go and get a lot of your other stuff. So if you're happy maintaining your own VM, then that's totally your call.
Yeah, and it's fine. Especially for today. There's nothing that we're going to do today is going to need like specifically this VM, and probably none of it will. Throughout the rest of the course. It's just if it does, it's there. And if it turns out like, oh, actually, do you know what we could have done with having this, that, or the other installed? I'll update the VMs, and they'll be there, so you could re-download and get a new image. Okay, so that's so if you have a look at doing that in the background downloading, just so that don't worry about installing for now or running it. You can do that as part of the next breakout session. What I want to do is to demo what it is that we're actually going to do. So the purpose of this one is really just to explain how to get started again. So I'm going to share screen, and hopefully everyone see my VM.
Yep.
Okay, so this is the page, obviously it's there. This one it's slightly different. It's just a branch from the other one because I'm actively using it so that make sure everything works there. So this is one that's just been a little bit more customized. What we're going to do is imagine that this is the one that you'll start off with. It'll have a different background image. You can pick what your background image is just by clicking this button. I've just made it. Sorry, this button. I've just made it different on this one. Yeah, I picked a random thing so that when I'm in there, I remember that which one it is that you will get a copy of and which one you don't. You'll see a login prompt at the start. The standard user is called student or Stuart Dent as the full name, which made me laugh for a good 5 minutes. And the password is swordfish, right? That's a bit of an inside joke in cybersecurity that passwords are always swordfish. So you'll probably see that come up a lot over the next 3 years because that's never not slightly funny. Important things: click here for a terminal. Okay, your applications are in this one in the top left-hand corner. So you want a browser or whatever, it's all there.
We can only see your webcam.
Brilliant. Right, let's try again.
I can see your screen as well.
I was going to say
That's just on. I think you might.
No, we can see a screen.
Okay.
It's a bridge.
So someone's Teams is messing with them. Yeah. Okay. If it isn't a fix that's easy, feel free to try and drop out and come back in. I'm going to be recording all of this anyway. But if it doesn't work, it will be recorded. Right. So applications are up here. You've also got this start menu if you want to type and run stuff, and Alt F2. You'll see this pop up. I will try to do things in a sort of more beginnery fashion and click on buttons and stuff, but I tend to not want to use the mouse. I like using the keyboard for things. I don't like having to keep swapping backwards and forwards. So I will be using shortcuts. So if you see this pop up, it's because I pressed Alt F2, and it just means that I can type in a command and have it run straight away. Okay, so here I'm actually going to use a different shortcut. So instead of using that terminal, I've got Control Alt and T is mapped to start up a terminal. So this is the terminal emulator. If anyone's not used Linux before, Linux can be presented in a bunch of different ways. Without this part, it looks very much like Windows. I mean, this is not necessarily a particularly good-looking interface, but it can look very different. It can have very swish-looking interface. But the real power of Linux is behind the scenes, and one of the things is the way you can interact with it through the shell. Okay, so the shell is what this is running now. So this terminal is connected to the shell, so it's me typing commands, and there are a bunch of things. So you'll see me type ls a lot, which is what I use to look at what files are there. So it's lists of files. If you see type ls-l, we get a list of files in long format. Some of this stuff you'll see explained in the notes as well, and I'll explain bits as we go along. So there is more detail about ls-al and various other things. Okay, so for now, I use Control-L then to clear the screen. But for now, I'm going to just start writing some Python. So I'm going to run Python. I'm going to type Python, and I'm going to press Tab. Right, you should definitely remember to press Tab whenever you think there are multiple options. You can see here that I've got Python 3, Python 2, Python 2.7, and so on and so on. I want Python 3, so I'm going to type Python 3 and press Enter. Okay. Now I'm inside a Python shell. If I type anything that is a valid line of Python, so remember we did hello world. it will execute as I type it. Okay, this is actually quite handy for testing little bits of stuff out. You think, oh, I need to try this. What's the actual command? Let me just try and make sure I've got that right. You can type it in there. But really, it's not how we edit Python and run programs. What we do instead is we put them into a text file. Now, Python programs are just text. They are, the source code is just plain text. We usually have a .py extension rather than .txt. On Windows, that's really important because it's what tells the operating system to use Python to execute it. On Linux, it's a little bit different, and I'll get into that in a second. But for now, we're going to use any old text editor. So if you have a look through here, I forgot what it is that's on here now, because in a minute I'm going to switch straight back over to Emacs. But oh, what was it? Was it Leaf or?
I was going to say Leaf is normally the standard one, isn't it?
Yeah, I can't remember what was on here now. There's definitely a text editor on here. I just can't remember what it was. Maybe it's Exit. I'll just do it from here.
You could always use the console text editor of Nano.
I was going to demonstrate Nano as well in a second. So yes, I will do. So we've got Xedit. I'm pretty sure it's got others as well. No Leaf. Gedit maybe. No. Okay. Xedit will do. So it's got Xedit. You can edit things in. You can also edit things like, I can't see who spoke, but someone just said you can use Nano. Nano is it's a venerable text editor that's almost always installed and quite useful. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into a directory and have a look what's there. And I didn't explain what I was doing, so I'm actually going to remove that. So rmdir to remove a directory. Now I'm going to make a directory called week1. I just deleted it, put it back. So we can have a look. Yep, there it is. ls-l. You can see, look, it's a directory. It's got a D at the start on this left-hand side. So this is explained in a little bit more detail on the repository. I'm going to go into there, and now you can see that I'm inside my home directory, which is represented by the squiggle. And let me zoom in on this. It says Control+. Oh, okay. I think I missed the key. Sorry. So it's nice and clear. Is that clear enough for everyone?
Oh yeah, that's huge.
Excellent. Right, so we've got here the tilde, that's a home directory. So if I did, cd tilde, I go back to home. I'm going to do now cd dash, which will take me back to the last place I was, which is a useful trick that I only learned like 2 years ago, after using Linux for about 25 to 30 years. And you can also see that you've got TMP and week1 in there. Okay, so that tells us where we are. So if I go back a directory by ..cd ..dot, same as on Windows using Command Shell or PowerShell, and cd .. you see I go back to my home directory. Okay, this shell is nice because it's showing me, if you ever don't know, you can press pwd and get more information. And the nice thing about that is it shows us that their home directory is actually home student. I can also do stuff like this, find out where it is if you ever needed to. Right, lots and lots of things that Linux can do, and you're not going to remember them all if you've never done this before. By the end of today, don't worry about it. You're going to be embedded with this stuff for the entirety of your course. You will pick up lots and lots of tips and tricks. There are lots of different ways to do it. And like I just said, I only learned about cd dash a little while ago. I have no idea when it became a standard thing, probably year dot, and I just didn't know about it. So TMP week1, I'm going to both directories straight away. There we are, nice empty directory. If I do ls-a, you can see a dot or a dot dot. The dot is here, the dot dot is back one, like we just used. Okay, so I'm going to make a file. I'm going to make a Python file. I'm going to put something in there. I'm just going to. There it is. That was the one. It just occurred to me. I remembered the name of the text editor. So Pluma is the text editor. Okay. So this is a text editor. We can write stuff in here. So as normal. Oops. And work, but I'm not going to do that. So you feel free to do this. You can use it there. You can do file save as. It works exactly like Notepad. I'm not going to do that. I'm actually going to use Emacs. So the right place. So there we are. Here's my editor. I'm going to go to TMP week 1, and I see a directory listing in there. You don't usually get this kind of stuff with an editor. This is just my preferred editor. Anyone that's interested and wants to use it, then I will happily support and explain how it works. It doesn't behave like any other text editor you've ever used because it's older than them all. So Control X, Control C, Control V do not do what you expect them to do. They do entirely different things. That's how weird it is because it's older than those key bindings. However, it's quite nice. It's very powerful. Does a lot of interesting things. But anyway, I'm not going to sell it. I'll wait until semester 2. Anyway, so you can use whatever you like. I'm using this. So I'm going to open up a file. I'm going to call it hello.py. And in there, I'm going to write hello world. Okay, so I'm going to do the print. Yeah. So print hello world. Save. And then over here, I should be able to look and I can see that there it is. There's hello.py. Anyone that's used to Windows might expect that we can do this to run it. Okay, we can't. Now I'm using Z shell here, which is the default on this this version of the VM. So it does give you a little cross and it tells you stuff. But the same thing would happen in Bash if you're using that shell. So anyone that's not using the VM for this module, you still can't run it. And the reason is it's not been made executable. Okay, so if I do this ls-l again, I've got a collection of things over here which are dashes unless they are not. All right, that makes sense in a second. This could all be dashes. In fact, I'll make it all dashes using the command chmod. So the file. This is explained in the notes in more detail, and I'll get onto it as we go along. So for now, just bear with me. I've typed some random things, and what it's done is turned all into dashes. Now, what that means is if it's all dashes, the first dash means it's not a directory. Okay, if I go back a directory and do ls-l, you can see there's a D on the directory. All right, and that's because it's a directory. If there's a dash instead of a D, it's not a directory. So that's nice and easy. But then we've got 9 other dashes. Okay, now these are in groups of 3. Each of those groups of 3 represent 3 letters, RWX, and they're either dashes or they are RWX. So the first one would be an R or a dash, the second one would be a W or a dash, and the last one is an X or a dash. And that's the same for each of the next groups of 3. And those 3 things, those 3 groups represent the permissions for different people. So the first set of 3 are my permissions. Now at the moment, I'm not allowed to read, write, or execute. Those are the 3 things, R, W, and X. Okay, so I need to change that if I want to be able to run this. In fact, I need to be able to read it, write it, and execute it. So I'm going to use chmod. Now I'll explain what this is actually doing. Chmod is what we use to change those permissions. So I'm going to change the permissions using U, which is the user, me, plus read, write, and execute. If I wanted it to only be read and write, I'd just put plus read and write. I can also, if I want to, say it's equal to RWX, and then it sets them all. So rather than just adding, it sets them. And what that does, if I say it was already RWX, like it will be now, okay, and I said chmod u equals X, also unset everything I said. Now, if I said chmod u plus R, it just added to it. Okay, so we can choose to subtract things, add things, or set them all at once. So I want it to be u plus RWX. Hello, and there it is. Now I probably could have just done equals, yeah, because it kind of does the same thing, but had it. All right, I always tend to use the plus. So the next group along are people that are in the same group. Now, at the moment, there's no one in this group because this is a single-use system, and this group that it's in is student. This is who owns it. That's me. It'll also be you on your system. You can make other users if you want to, but it's not really necessary. And there's a group. Different things will belong to different people. If I go and look at the root of the file system, so you remember when I did pwd, I'm in week 1 in temp and then in my home, and my home is student, which is inside the home directory, which all starts with that slash. So ls/, is saying look at the root. This is like the C drive, without going into any directories if you're on Windows. If you're on a Mac, it's like the root because it's the same thing. If I do ls-l and that, you can see some things are owned by different people. So here we've got a lot of stuff that's owned by root and it's in the group root, right? I don't think we've got anything. Have any particular strange combination, if I'm honest. Oh, here we go. So the shadow password file. This isn't the module to talk about passwords and hashes and shadows, but if it was, it'd be quite fun. We will get onto this actually, because one of the things we'll try and steal later in the module. But you can see here it has a special group, so it doesn't have to be the same. And that means that when we do ls-l and we see this, we can see here that people in the same group that this belongs to, so other people in student, which could be someone else that's not student but is in the group, it says what they can do, read, write and execute. And we could do chmod g+r hello, for example. You can see that there's an R in that second group, and that means that people who are in the group student that aren't me, that aren't this student, so it could be like, a user called Dave who's also in the group student, would be able to read it but not write to it, as in edit it or execute it. And the last one is everybody else, right? So if I said chmod o, which is other, plus rx, what I've said there is that anyone that's not covered by those first two, so people that aren't in this group and aren't me, they can read and execute. Okay, so there we go. But the important thing is I can execute. I am the owner, so I need to look at the first group and I can execute it. Right, now what happens if I type hello.py? Anyone that knows Linux want to jump in and tell me why this won't work? No? Okay.
Put dot slash.
Got to put dot slash, brilliant. So it still doesn't work. And the reason is if you start with this dot slash. Remember I said that dot means the current directory. We put the dot slash to say there is a file that I want to execute and here is where it is. We're given a complete path relative to where we are to get to it. Okay. We could also have typed in home student. Oh my goodness, I can't type. Home student tmp week 1 hello.py. We could also type that. Note I'm using tab to see the completions and they fill for me. That would also work. Or I could do tilde, the little squiggly character, which means home, tmp, week 1, hello. That also works. And these things will allow me to get to that path. And there's a good reason for this. It's a security problem. So on Windows, it will execute the stuff that's there, which means that when you type in a name, the operating system is searching in various places for something to execute. If I type ls, it just works, right? ls works. If I did which ls, which tells me where something comes from, oh, that's a bad one because I've aliased it. Let's do which pwd. It's built-in command, right? Which cat, is cat going to be built in? No, good. Okay, so which tells me that when I type cat, which does this as and other things, it's running an executable, which is in /bin/cat. But it runs even though I didn't type /bin/cat. I can type /bin/cat, that's no problem. Yeah, that will work too. But it works anyway. And the reason is there is a variable, an environment variable, that the operating system keeps track of that says when you type something in, I will look in a certain set of places to see if it's something that can be executed. Okay, you can actually find out what that is by doing echo $path. And you can see one of those things is going to be /bin, right? They're all separated by colons. If I wanted to be able to run things in the current directory, I could, and I'm just going to tell you before I tell you what it is, please do not do this, okay? But I could, if I wanted to, add to this and put a dot, right? And then it would look in the current directory that I'm in. And the reason we don't do that is because it's all too easy for an attacker to find a way to drop an executable in a directory that you might be in at some point and try and run. Now, what we could do is we could maybe hope for a typo, like, I go to type cat, but I instead of write, VAT, because the C and the V are next to each other. If there's a program that's executable called VAT, it will then run that. And if that's the dot's in the path, I'll just run malicious code potentially. But worse than that, if the dot comes before /bin, it will run things in the current directory before it looks for things in other places. So it picks the one that's closest to the start of the list. So don't do that. It really isn't too much of a big deal to put the /, but now I've explained why, hopefully it makes more sense. Right, /hello.py. Now I'm going to warn you now, it's still not going to do what we want, okay? And why is this? Well, the reason for this is that on Linux, anything that's a text file that you try to execute will be assumed to be a shell script. Okay, so anything that I can type into a shell like this will just pop out. So echo and some text will come out. If I did ls, it runs this. And so if I made a file, let's call it let's just call it stuff for now. Do echo. This is my awesome ls script. Oh my goodness, I don't know why I care if I type this properly, but I do. And then run ls. I'll save that. I'll do chmod u plus x stuff, and then I'll run stuff. Fine, no problem, because it's commands that can be run. So this is like a batch file on Windows. All right. So clearly with Python, that's not what we want to happen. Let me just zoom in on this. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put in a special line at the top, which will tell the shell what this should be executed through. So hash exclamation mark, which traditionally are pronounced as sh and bang, and therefore the two things together are known as shebang, and then the path to the thing that we want to execute. So I could type Python 3 because I wanted to run through Python 3, and that probably work on this system because I know it's in the path, and it does. Not always the case because you might not have it ready to run. You might want to put a complete path in. So one of the things that you'll see quite often is that you run this. What that does, it says, tell me where the Python 3 thing is and run that. And that way you've got a little bit of redirection. So if you see it in the two different ways, it really does the same thing. I'm going to save that, run. Oh, no. Okay, then user bin, sorry. And there you can see me actually using which properly to do something useful. I didn't know where it was. I, for some reason, forgot it was in user bin, and it's in put bin. So I use which. Oh yeah, there it is. Okay, so let's try that. There we go. Hello world. So that is what was happening behind the scenes when you did the this in your web-based Python interpreter. Okay, so there's a bunch of things going on there. You can see, I've been using the terminal. We've learned a little bit of Linux, and like I said, if that all seems like a lot now, don't worry. This is stuff you will forget. It actually, as daft as it sounds, it's sometimes hard to explain to people this stuff, even after a few months of using Linux, because you almost get muscle memory for it. You just sort of, you type the stuff in. You don't really think about ls and that kind of thing. So you will pick it up. You'll pick it up really quickly. You've got this video, you've also got the repository, and I'll put together, if there are common issues or people find particular things difficult, I'll put together some extra materials or videos on those. So keep talking to us and let us know. You know that you've got an editor in here, so you've got Pluma. If you wanted something else, you can use something else. That's not a problem. One of the things that's useful, and I'll cover this now while we're here, is it's useful to be able to install other software, and you can install whatever you like on these things. Bear in mind, you've only got a fixed amount of drive space. You can get around, but it's a bit of a hassle. So one of the things that you might want to do is install a different editor. Leaf is quite popular, so let's have a look. And the way you would do that is you could do apt search Leaf, for example, and it will tell me what's available. I'm just going to scroll up and have a look. Leafpad, there we go. GTK plus based simple text editor. Okay, if I'm going to use like a visual text editor that's not Emacs, I usually go for Leaf just because it's really small and light and quick. It's like using Notepad. It's not fancy. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to install that. Now I can't install as this student user. On Linux, just like on Windows now, actually, some things require you to actually explicitly say you want to have, enhanced privileges. So we want to run stuff as root on here. It's the same as administrator on Windows. If I just try and type apt install leafpad, you'll see, oh, you're not root, you can't do that. Permission denied. Da, 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 da. How do I do it? One of the things that you might see people do is they might run as a different user and run as root. Older versions of Kali, for example, would be the default be you just log in as root and you do everything as root. The trouble is, if you accidentally delete your main file system, it will delete it. If you've got those kind of missions, you can run it. Or if someone managed to compromise your shell and get you to run something like with the path issue we talked about earlier, then that's running as root as well. So for safety, we don't do that. In general life, we don't do it, and even as a security person, it's not worth doing. Up until I think last year, I always used to roll a special version of Kali that had all the stuff that we wanted, all configured in a particular way. Emacs was installed, that kind of stuff. All the tools that we use, but I would also have a standard user and have everything set up so you wouldn't need to run as root for as much as possible, and that's the best way to work. I think it was only last year. Standard Kali now. You boot in and log in as a standard user, and that's the recommended way to use it. So we don't need to actually do that custom anymore. Right. So if I want to do it, what I do instead is I use sudo. So that's super user do, right? So it says, right, do this with elevated privileges, and then I can do it. So for now, I'm just going to do super user ls, right? I could have done ls anyway, but it's going to be a nice, easy way to demonstrate what happens. And this is what's the password? The password is swordfish. So it's not the root password, it's your password. So this user has been given permission to do sudo stuff, and we're just making use of that. And then you can see that's what I get. Why would I use sudo ls? Well, there are places I might not be able to look. All right, so ls root, for example, there's permission denied. That doesn't belong to me. Okay, but sudo ls root, and I can see what's there, which is nothing, which is why there's no output. And also notice it didn't ask me for a password. The reason is it already knows I've just typed it in. All right, so if I leave it for a while and come back or log into a different shell, I will have to provide the password again. But for a little while, it'll just let me do it. Okay. Right, so let's install Leafpad just as a demo. Apt install Leafpad. That's the Welsh version. Install Leafpad. And the nice thing about Z Shell is its completion will also work on stuff like this. So I can cut down on keystrokes and find things quite easily. Okay. One of the things, if you're not used to using Z Shell, you might, if you're using Bash, you'd be able to type Leafpad probably now and press Tab or execute it. And this doesn't seem to recognize that it's there. Okay, it is there. And if I just type Leafpad and run it, it would be fine. But the completion doesn't recognize it. And what you can do is just use rehash, and then it will understand. So I can now complete Leafpad. It will understand it's there. So on the Z Shell, you explicitly tell it, look, update your lists of things. And there we go. And as you can see, nice simple text editor, looks exactly like Notepad, fires up really quickly. Doesn't have a lot of features, but for basics, it's there. Okay, right. I'm going to pop out of there. Other things I mean to tell people before I forget. When you're using the virtual machines, it's really important to recognize that I'm running this full screen. Okay, so I'm kind of stuck. If I use Alt-Tab, I'm tabbing between stuff that's on here. I'm not tabbing through stuff that's in Windows. So one of the things I need to be able to do is get out of this, right? That's the first thing. So in VirtualBox, the standard is the right control key. Okay, so it's the control key on the right-hand side of your keyboard. You press that once, and now I can tab out of there and into anything I like. When I go back, it's recaptured again, and look, I'm back into here. But I can just press Control. The other thing is, you might have a different resolution to me. Okay, so on here, I've got it set to be quite a nice scale for this monitor. But if yours is different, you might want to change the settings. Okay, now if you go into the settings on here and go to control menu, hardware monitor settings, you can set what this is and you can then apply it. Okay, so set it, apply it, save it, then when you reboot, it'll still be in there. Okay, it'll do it immediately, and when you reboot, it'll be fine. One more little bit of configuration before I forget, and I wanted to make sure this was in. When you first start up the VM, it's going to have, oh no, wrong one. What I mean, VirtualBox. Sorry, I've got VMware Player, Workstation, and this installed all at once. One of the things that you want to do, let's get rid of the screen, is make sure the settings are okay for your system. So if you right click once you've opened it once, and you've got it in VirtualBox, use settings, and then go down to system. You can give it some memory. Okay, it'll work with not very much. Don't go down to 4 meg. But you can go down to like a couple of gig. It will work. It might just be a little bit more sluggish. I've got it set on 8 gig at the moment. There's only 6. Well, it's quite a lot really, I suppose. The 16 gig in this laptop, about half. I spend half my time inside a VM, so I don't really care whether Windows gets less RAM. You can also select how many CPUs you want. So here I've put 4, so I'm using 4 with 12. I can increase or decrease that. Again, if you only have 4 cores, don't try and assign 4 cores to your VM. 1 or 2 is fine. 1 will work. It's not a problem. 2 will work. It's not a problem. It's just how sort of nippy it is when you're in there. But we're not playing games. We're not doing high graphical stuff. It will be absolutely fine. And I think that's about it really. There's plenty of other settings and things. And do you know what? If you want to explore them, go ahead. The worst thing you can do is you can trash the virtual machine. Okay, and if that happens, you just download it again. Right? It's a nice safe space. Inside there, feel free to experiment. If you've got files you want to keep, that's obviously something to take care of first. But you can log into your OneDrive for the university, copy the files in there. You can SSH into something and send them somewhere. You can even, if you wanted to, plug in a USB stick and tell it to mount that inside and copy them across. There's various ways you can do it, but other than that, you go mad inside the VM as much as you like. Okay, any questions on the stuff I've just done?
So some people want to know when the video will be out.
I'll try and get it done sort of in the next few days. It doesn't always pop up so all of these videos go into Microsoft Stream. They don't always happen instantly, so sometimes it's a day, sometimes it's a day and a half. But as soon as I've got it, I'll start chopping it up and doing it. I might put up a raw version, just like straight, this is the thing, and you can skip through. And then I want to chop it down and get sort of to the key parts as well, so that you can sort of just watch the bits that you're really interested in at the time.
Another question was, what version of Linux is it? What Linux have you customized?
Okay, so in here I'm using, I just realised I keep using another shortcut. I'm using Control, Alt and left and right to go between different desktops. So there are 4 virtual desktops. So that's 3, that's 2, that's 1. So the way you can find out, it's LXLE, which is a Debian derivative, but you can find these things out. So you can use UNAME-A to find out about kernel details. Okay, so if you look on there, you can see various bits and pieces about the kernel, which to be honest is not usually what people want to know. But it's Linux 4.15, and you can see what it's compiled for. There's also LSB release, so LSB_release -A, and that will tell you that it's a Ubuntu derivative. So it's from Debian through Ubuntu to this, which is LXLE, and it's based on Bionic. So it's basically the LTS Ubuntu, but stripped right down.
Okay. There's a few people that are having errors which I'm chasing up. I think they're trying to use VMware Workstation to open the image. Guys, it doesn't work with VMware Workstation right now. You need to use VirtualBox.
It should, but I don't know why. I don't know whether it's VirtualBox is writing bad OVAs or VMware's doing a bad job of reading them.
Yeah, I've done some chasing, and I think it's the way VirtualBox compresses the OVA. You can zip it and convert it using VMware. It's a lot of mucking around. I need to investigate whether or not it's BS first before I give you guys the link,
Well,
but it might be fixable.
before you do that, so if you're thinking of opening up the OVA, getting the disk image out, and then using VBox Manage to convert it to a VHD to open up in, don't bother.
No?
It's screwy anyway.
Yeah,
I
was gonna say.
will put up a different version. It might take me a few days, but I will have another version up that works in VMware Player and Workstation. At some point, we will get you all added to a site where you can get licensed copies of VMware Workstation, Windows, Visual Studio, and all that kind of stuff as well. But we have to get everyone registered first, and then we have to do it one by one. So it takes us a little while to get through. But once you're in, you'll then have access to that for the rest of the course. So yeah, you'll be able to use the big version of these things.
Yeah. Yeah, that seems to be all of the questions. It looks like a lot of people are trying to use VirtualBox at the moment. Are there any other questions not error related right this second? There's some people that may have got an error trying to download, but I've got a sneaking suspicion that that just might be opening stuff.
It will take a while to download if you're doing the direct link. Is anyone successfully using the torrent? We did a test this morning, and it works. In that it might be a little bit slow to start for some reason, but once it's up, it seems to be quite quick.
Yeah, I didn't run the torrent. It looks like a few people found that it's blocked, but
okay. Oh well. Well, maybe we'll try and make another case for having it unblocked. It's one of those things that I a couple of times gone to IT services and said, look, we have genuine reason to do this, and then they point out that every time they unblock it, all they get is like 90% of the traffic suddenly turns to torrents, and it's definitely not university related.
Okay, so this is a good question that I've just seen from Asim. What are the main topics that James wants us to go over and remember from today?
Well, so for the session so far, it's really the basics of Python, how to get in and write some code. So it's not so much about what you remember as much as what you actually get done. So I'd like you to actually have the VM or your own way of working, written some Python, hello world and those things. We'll have a bit of a breakout session in a minute to do that, and if we've got time, we'll move on to doing some slightly more advanced Python. If we don't, it's not a problem. I knew this week was going to be a little bit difficult with everyone taking time with asking questions about how to get in, because I know it's been messy. So it's not an issue. But yeah, it's really just making sure that you can run Python, that you can find a file inside the terminal, that you can make it executable. So that next week say right, write this code and run it. You know exactly what that means, right? So you'll go, okay, I'm going to go and get that and put it in there. All of the code examples that we use on the course will be up on the GitHub repos that you saw. So those pages. Let me just share my screen again. Explain what I mean. I keep calling them GitHub.
Honestly, a good banter would be to install Arch Linux from scratch.
I don't because
by the way,
talked
do you use
about
Arch?
I have a hatred for you now.
I use Arch on my desktop at work, but I definitely wouldn't recommend. If this is your first go with Linux, then just use Ubuntu or LXLE, like the thing that's there. Arch is great, it's very nice. I do like Arch, but it's definitely not this is the first time, unless you decided you're going to have a year off and just do that, in which case you might as well do Linux from scratch. But anyway, when I talk about the repositories and GitHub, I mean this. It doesn't look like GitHub, but you'll notice it is actually on GitHub, and it's the repository rendered as pages. So what I was going to say was all of the examples that we use will be up somewhere that you can get access to them, either through Aula or more likely through here, this site or the other one, which I think is linked here, so you can get to it from there as well. I haven't pushed I fixed the dark mode on this one. I also haven't pushed it. I'll push that in a second. So it probably means there's some Oh no, that's there. I'll fix it anyway. We'll have examples in there. You don't need to log into these. All right, and that's useful because when you're in the VM, you can literally just go to the website and copy and paste code, download files. So next week, I want to be able to say, go onto the site, get this example, run it, and that will be an easy job for you because you'll have the VM, you'll have done hello world, you'll have edited files, and you'll be able to go straight there.